truth. Are you not
And it's really not that difficult. Seriously, why can't you get in the chat room?
Because I can't. I'm trying to register without getting on Facebook. If my whole Facebook
you don't have
on my life is
Let's
over.
just put your email.
It's not that. I mean, do you know how to work the internet, Jen? Have you ever been on the internet?
All I do. Come on, you've seen me there. That's where you found me.
Then if you can work Twitter, you can't. You literally cannot get in the chat.
I did it. So shut up.
Okay.
Tell me the truth. Are you not mesmerized?
I'm not doing that.
Are you?
That wasn't
are
me,
chills
Eli.
not going up and down your
Eli, are you
skinny
doing
little
that?
spine?
No.
What do you do all day? Not a goddamn thing.
What's
When was the
going
last
on?
thing you did anything over there at that studio?
What a mess.
Never.
Specifically,
You never do a goddamn
How
thing
do you
but
stop
sit
this?
around and
What?
bitch about women's genitalia. You guys are
Did you
disgusting
stop,
and need to get
China?
off the radio. Jake, you're fired.
Oh, man, what the hell? Can we stop it?
I don't know whoever hit it. I don't know. But me
Hold
trying
on.
to play another clip stopped it. So.
What a joke. This show's so amateur. All right, let's settle down. I actually, today's going to be one of our very few shows that is not amateur because I have an expert today. So we're going to get right into it. But real quick, Jeffrey, I only hit it once, so it shouldn't be doing that. Is that a Blog Talk thing?
No, somebody might have just brushed by it and hit it or whatever. I'm not really for certain.
It
Who's
showed that it
somebody?
wasn't
Isn't there
playing.
just two of you?
But if
It's probably Jen. Jen's not the one capable. She can't handle the internet. She probably did it.
I know.
Anyway.
I need to explain it to her remedial style and shit.
Anyway, enough dicking around. This is so embarrassing. I actually get a guest one of the few times I get a guest, and the show's a mess. But anyway, today, let me just back up a little bit. I did a show, oh, God, before I had Jen, back when we still knew what we were doing. And there was this woman, Peggy Howel. Jeffrey, I know you remember Peggy Howel. And for those of you who don't, Peggy Howel runs an organization called NAFA, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Fat Acceptance. And basically what she calls it is a civil rights group for fat people. I had her on my show, also had Dr. Gordon back when he called in. I think he hates me now, but that's beside the point. Anyway, she was talking about rights being taken away and how obese people are discriminated against and whatnot. We did an hour show. It ended up with her hanging up on me and never responding to any of my emails. Although I was not rude, for the record.
Ever.
I was. No, I can be rude, but that one time I was not. I simply let her speak, and by the end of the show I got a little frustrated because according to her, she was obese because she herself weighs over 300 pounds. And Jeffrey, who also weighs 300 pounds, was trying to explain to her, we were both trying to explain to this just giant woman that if you eat too much and you don't exercise, it is directly attributed to your how fat you are. She told me she worked on a farm and only ate 3 square meals a day. So when I asked her, so why do you think you're so heavy, she got very upset and hung up. Anyway, backstory, that show, which there's only 7 people that listen to the show, one of those listeners was a personal trainer by the name of Adrienne Pelt, who listened to the show, and she did a lot of research. Are you there, Adrienne?
I am here. Hello,
Say
everybody.
Hello. How are you?
Hi.
Hello. I'm doing excellent. How's everybody?
We're doing good, Jen. It's been a little troubleshooting problem this morning. I'm trying not to let it get to me. I'm a little upset. I'm going to blame Jeffrey.
I'm still getting my confirmation email. So.
You're still not in the chat room, Jen.
Oh, good God.
Anyway, okay. Well, we have a guest who knows what they're doing, so let's focus on her. So, Adrienne, you heard the show. You heard Peggy, and from what I understand, I don't know if you had the blog ahead of time, but you have a blog, and you've been following this story. Yes?
Yes, I have.
So, and you obviously know a little bit about Peggy and NAFA. So I'm just going to kind of let you catch me up on what you know, because, like I said, I did that show about a month ago, and I've been trying to get Dr. Yoni Freedhoff, who was one of the people that shut down the Disney ride, and Peggy, I've been trying to email her for some time, and it's just been hard to get either one. So the show keeps getting pushed off, and what started this was shortly after I had Peggy on the show, there's this ride at Disney at the Epcot Center, and Adrienne will explain all this, but I just want to catch everybody up, called Habit Heroes. And basically it was an interactive, quote-unquote game that kids could play, and there were some characters in it that had, what we consider bad habits. And these kids come in, it's interactive, and you basically help these characters to develop good habits. Well, anyway, Peggy, our dear friend Peggy, who magically is 300 pounds even though she works out like a fiend and barely eats, wrote a letter to Disney saying it was bullying fat kids and adding to the negative stereotype, quote unquote. And believe it or not, through some pressure, Disney has shut the ride down. Now, it's just suspended. They are going to work out the kinks, so to speak, so it's not ended forever. But this was the show I've been trying to do for some time. So, Adrienne, the floor is open to you. You know, obviously, a lot more about this, but everything I said is correct, right?
Okay, yeah, it's absolutely correct. Yeah, I first just want to say thank you so much for having me on the show. I really, really appreciate it. This is actually what I deem to be one of my wheelhouses, childhood obesity and just obesity in general. And I think at this point, I mean, I feel like we all can agree, A, that obesity exists, and that childhood obesity is now one of the most ubiquitous discussions that we have today, especially now since Disney's newest attraction, Habit Heroes, as Jake was saying, is kind of on the cutting room floor. They are, from what it says, they've been saying it was a soft opening. It was just to get people in and get their feedback, and it has since now been closed, and they said they are revamping in hopes of creating a ride or an attraction that appeals to everyone and doesn't have the backlash that, unfortunately, Peggy Howel and her association and the Yoni, what's his name? Yoni
Freedhoff, and you can find him
Freedhoff.
on Twitter at Yoni Freedhoff, and he agreed to do the show a couple times. Because it was really his blog that incited this whole thing. Peggy wrote a letter saying, they're being mean to fat people, and then he's a doctor. He runs a weight loss clinic up in Canada, and he wrote a blog, and it was pretty much a combination of him and Peggy that started this firestorm. But just to back up a second, when you say childhood obesity, for those people listening, I mean, you're a personal trainer, so you know what it looks like. A lot of people are so confused as to what that even means. So let's start just with the definition of obesity. I mean, we're not talking about 5-10 pounds overweight, correct?
No, we're not talking about 5 or 10 pounds. And just the basic definition from the World Health Organization says that obesity is abnormal or excessive fat accumulation that presents a risk to health. Now, for children and adults, the measurement is different. For children, it is a percentile. It's a percentile, so it's between 85th percentile and the 95th percentile. A child is obese. So because children are different heights and different weights and have different growth patterns, it's not as straight across the line as it is for adults.
Gotcha. So they're saying if they compared to other kids, if they're in the top.
Compared to other kids, exactly.
Right. So we're talking about basically the fattest of them. You all right, Eli?
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, I forgot to say hi to Eli. I'm sorry. Hello, Eli.
Hey. Hi, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So, this is compared to other kids, you're talking in the top 85, 95 percentile, you said.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I mean, I believe that we all know what that looks like. We know when we're looking at a just slightly chubby, cherubic kid. I was one of those chubby kids.
Me too.
And we know when we're looking at a child who is beyond that, who is basically, and this is just my perspective, has been force-fed food that is attributing to excessive weight gain. Excessive. Right. And we know what that looks like. It's the child with the distended face. It's a child with a belly that sticks out of their shirt. It's a child that waddles. It's a child that cannot run, cannot go upstairs. It's generally the child who is sitting in the corner and who is unable to play with the kids like children should be doing.
Right,
so
and they're
on the same page.
Also, they're like, they have they're I mean, everyone knows what an obese person is. The only reason I'm trying to classify it is because people like Peggy and organizations like NAFA, much like how the bully thing I touched on last week, are trying to do it, is initially they're trying to change the definition of obese. They're trying to say it's just a normal stasis, so to speak, like this is their body type and they should be accepted. And I just want to clear before we get in this, nobody here is anti-fat people. I mean, Adrienne is a professional trainer. This is her business. There are health risks. Peggy tried to tell me on the show that she had better blood pressure than any of her friends who were thinner than her, but of course, I wanted to respond before she hung up. I bet if I put you on a stress test, if I put you on a treadmill at 4 miles an hour after 30 seconds, I guarantee every one of your whatever measurables you want to call them will be in a danger zone. I mean, you're probably a heart attack risk running a due sprint. So we're not talking about, when we say health risk, we're not talking about, if you sit on a couch and someone checks your blood pressure. We're talking about you literally cannot be active. I just want to get that out. So anyway, continue.
Absolutely. And as you were saying, it sounds like, we're all not against fat people, in quotes, or obese people. And I want to make that very clear. I am against obesity. I am not against obese people. I am not against obese children. I'm for helping people change their lives and change the quality of their lives. So eventually, we all can live as long as we are able to live in the world that we're living in right now. So,
okay, so fast forward to Disney. Epcot Center at Walt Disney World builds this ride, this interactive ride called Habit Heroes. Can you explain what Habit Heroes is for those people that haven't looked it up?
Yeah, so as Dick is saying, it's an interactive ride. It was created in collaboration with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. It's basically a live-action animation that results in an interactive experience to teach kids healthy eating habits. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to Epcot Center to go to the ride, which it would have been, a little bit more tangible. But from what I've seen, yes, enter 3 interactive rooms where they're introduced to the heroes. There's one gentleman, he's muscular, his name is Will Power, and then there's a female character, her name is Calisthenics, so you can see the play on the names there.
Right, and they're human. I've seen the ride. They're two human. They're actor and actress.
Yes, they're
right.
human actor.
Gotcha.
And from what it seems like, their goal is to cheer the kids on to better habits by pointing out what the challenging habits are. And the challenging habits are watching too much television, playing video games nonstop, eating junk food, all the things that are kind of the sign of the times of the world that we live in right now, the world that we're living in right now.
So with someone like Peggy, I mean, I would love, and I did, for the record, invite Peggy Howel and also Yoni Freedhoff to both be on this show. Yoni had a better excuse than Peggy, but my feeling is that they, this is my opinion, I think they were scared. I think they were afraid to defend their position because, and maybe Yoni will respond on Twitter, but to have a problem with this ride, because what Adrienne just explained is it. There's no, go in there and find a fat kid and throw bricks at him. There's nothing we're hiding. We'll get into the characters. I mean, this is pretty much, there's, a bunch of characters. Only 2 of them were overweight from what I understand. We'll get into that in a second. But the ride is, for instance, one of the things I saw was there's this one couch potato who's fat and he's eating chips, and you have this, video game controller, and you shoot the potato chips with carrots and vegetables. And every time you hit a snack food with the vegetable, it erases the snack food, and then he gets thinner, right? So it's what maybe 20 years ago, before Puss America happened, before everyone went batshit crazy, you used to be able to tell a fat person, hey, why don't you just stop eating so much and exercise and you'll lose weight? And at the very least, if they said, I'm not interested in that, they at least back then knew that's why they were fat. Now when you're talking to a fat person or any crazy person or the bully witch hunter, however you want to tie it in, you can make that suggestion to them. Don't eat so much and exercise a little, and now you are a bully. When that is basic fact and science. So Yoni Freedhoff, the doctor who has a financial gain, I want to point that out too. He runs an organization in Canada. He, as far as I know, he provides stomach stapling to gigantic people, and it suits him and serves him to defend this position by saying this is a stereotype that fat people are magically fat because he gets, $20,000 or whatever every time he ties their stomach off. So neither of those people are on the show. So we're just going to explain in a realistic view. There's really no way to argue that there's any sort of bullying, in my opinion. I mean, Adrienne, you might have a different opinion, but this ride itself it's called Habit Heroes, and it's to point out that certain people have bad habits, and if you change your habit, it will change the physical manifestation, yes?
Definitely. And
okay.
I think something that should be clear is that while there are several characters, the characters on the actual ride that are bigger characters, their website that coincides with the actual ride, there are characters who are medium-sized. There are characters who are very slim, and they're not all weight-based. There are 25 actual characters in total that make up this entire experience that kids are able to be a part of, or we'll see what happens when it's revamped. It could completely change. But that kids are able to be a part of. And they're not just habits that have to do with food. They're also habits that, for instance, there's a character her name is Insecura. She's an average size, and she lacks self-esteem. There's a character called Drama Queen. She's also an average size, and she's a gossiper. So they're not just trying to, corner the market on obese children or fat children, or they're actually trying to have a broad perspective on changing the lives of children in the world that we live today. Because I think that, from my perspective, I think that it sounds like the life that children are living now is very, very different than the life that I lived when I was younger. I feel like things were simpler, and I feel like everybody always says that, but I really do believe it.
Well, it certainly was understood. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I imagine you're you're older than
we're in the same generation.
You're an adult woman, yes?
I'm an adult woman, yes.
So I'm 33. So even in my lifetime, I mean, I grew up kind of when it started going a little crazy, but there was still at least a foothold into reality when I was growing up. Just a smidge of it. I mean, it's all but gone now. But when we were kids, I mean, there was definite understanding that I'll just put it this way. No one was talking about childhood obesity as an epidemic 15, 20 years ago. I mean, it was like there might have been one super fat kid in your school. Now when you look at the numbers, I mean, I don't know if you know the numbers, but there's certainly more than one fat kid per school. It's probably more like one fat kid per chair in class when you think about it. I mean, it is an epidemic by definition of the word. It is out of control. So the weird thing here is basically we're getting fatter. I mean, if you look at stats, we are getting fatter, and not 5-10 pounds. We are getting more and more obese. 75 to 100 pounds overweight is happening more and more every day. Yet we have more knowledge about healthy foods now than we ever have. We know about carbs and calorie intake, and there's personal trainers. And I mean, people are more and more educated about food, but yet they're getting fatter and fatter. So there is a weird disconnect there. And I've heard a lot of theories, but to me it's simple. It's that people like Peggy, that's the disconnect. It's fat people and anybody that has any sort of bad habit, to use Disney's habit hero, anybody that's out of touch with reality, that doesn't want to take personal responsibility for their behavior, which we've seen on this show every week in some form or another, they don't want to sit there and go, you know what, I make bad choices. You know what, I'm not in control of what I do. Instead, what they say, like Peggy Howel, who has a civil rights organization, what kind of bullshit is that for fat people, is they're saying... Can
I comment on that for a second? Do you mind if I comment just on the civil rights?
Can I just finish my thoughts? I'm in genius time. Hold on, give me 4 seconds.
You're in genius time?
These people basically are saying, they're saying simple, I don't need to change anything. You need to change the way you view me. If you tell me the truth, that affects my delusion, and now you're bullying me. That's what's happened. People do not take responsibility. You look at even antidepressants or the way people deal with depression or drinking, whatever it is, nobody's sitting there going, this is me. I made this happen. When I look in the mirror and pinch my fat rolls, this is something I did. It comes from somewhere else. And that's become the way people respond today. So I just want to get that.
Where does
anyway.
the fat come from, Jake?
My fat? I eat too much and I'm lazy and I'm not active. It's that simple. Do you want to get into my mommy issues? Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah, let's do mommy issues.
Let Adrienne finish, and then we'll get into my mommy issues.
Oh, man. So you were actually talking about statistics. So currently at the moment, approximately 17% of our children and adolescents between ages of 2 and 19 years old are obese.
Oh, my gosh.
And for adults, generally, what we're hearing out there is 2/3 of U.S. adults are overweight or obese. So what you can pretty much do is have that. A third are obese and a third are overweight, which makes, if you do the math, that less than 1/3 of our American adults are actually of a healthy weight.
Oh,
and
my
I don't know out of all the people on this panel today if you can factor yourself into that, but that's what the numbers look like, and we all
I'm a
fall
healthy weight
somewhere.
now.
I think that represents our panel pretty accurately, actually.
All the way across the board.
I don't work out at all, though. I bet you. Well, all my blood pressure, everything's beautiful. I'm just blessed, but I'm
Well, that's
gonna
because you do
be.
meth, and meth will keep.
I don't do meth.
Anyway, so that's shocking. I mean, that's shocking. Again, we can't reiterate it enough. In a time where we are more educated about what goes into our body than ever before, we are fatter. So there is a disconnect. You can't argue against those stats. There is a disconnect. And, again, we'll keep talking about Disney, but I have issue. I get angry. I mean, Jen always calls me during the week and tells me, I think you're too hard on people. You get angry. But this woman, Peggy, who I, on some level, feel sorry for. I mean, she dropped a weird little bomb.
You feel sorry for her. You don't hate her.
I feel sorry for her, but again, there's this line between I'm choosing to be a delusional fat person in my own life, which is sad, but you're doing it in your own home, fine. But to go out of your way to start comparing your movement to the civil rights struggle, the 60s, and then basically getting a group of fatties and non-fatties and shutting down rides and having this sort of witch hunt mentality that anybody that doesn't accept it, she doesn't even call it fat, she calls it people of size. That it's like this weird little thing. So anyway, she's starting a movement, and basically, there's children out there. We just heard the numbers that are gigantically fat, and it's unhealthy. And I wanted to say one thing: kids don't have credit cards, they don't have cars, they don't get up and go, I'm going to drive to McDonald's today and stuff my fat face. You're talking 8, 9 years old. They are completely dependent upon their parents. So a lot of these kids that are fat that we all tease or that I do, I don't know if everyone else is as cruel as I am, but these fat kids, they really don't have a say. Obviously, any kid, any of us at 7 or 8, if mom and dad brought home a giant ho-ho and said, here, eat this, none of us are going to go, you know what, I want to make a healthy choice. It tastes good. We're going to shove that ho-ho in our mouth. If our parent brings another one, we're going to eat another one. So it's like these kids, these numbers for kids being fat, I want to be clear, they're an exception. They're not a Peggy. Because Peggy's a grown woman, and literally grown. She's in her 40s and 50s. She's making these decisions continually, and she's bringing it in. And as she has this movement where she's saying, you need to accept us, denying that it's unhealthy, there are millions of kids that are being force-fed, like Adrienne, one of the first things she said, I want to point that out. These kids are being force-fed. This is against their will. This is child abuse, if you want to call it out. And how do you not get angry at somebody like Peggy Howell, who brushes it off as some sort of civil rights movement, when these kids are literally unhealthy? And I heard a story last week where a 14-year-old had a heart attack due to 14 years old, heart attack due to complications from obesity. So there's kids dying. Why Peggy Howell is out there saying, we need to be respected. No. Again, no one's against fat people. We're not here to punish you or insult you, but this is a health risk. And there are kids' lives at stake.
Children, yes.
What's that?
And when it comes to children, and, that's what our talk is about today.
Yes.
When it comes to children, it's imperative that we just get the message across that it's the only way things are going to begin to change is if the adults of the world act like adults and actually make decisions from places that actually make sense.
Right.
Unfortunately, from what I know, from what I've read, I mean, I don't know Peggy Howell. Like I said, I have nothing against this woman. What I have, the issue that I have is maybe similar to Jake's. It's just that it's very challenging to know that there's somebody out there who, because of their own dysfunction, is making it impossible for even a small life lesson to be taught to a child.
I think that's a great point.
These are small life lessons. I mean, especially in the world that we live today where parents aren't, they're working more often than not. And part of the issue with childhood obesity is that parents are using food as a function of family. They're using food and television and video games and all these things that maybe we didn't have when we were younger. Those are now tools for taking care of kids.
Yeah,
used
they're
to be
babysitters.
just for television.
Yeah, and you know
what?
Now
that's
lazy.
A number of other.
That's lazy parenting.
It's beyond lazy.
Right.
It's not doing the job when you and actually I take that back because I know that my mother was a single mother and I'm a only child, and so I had to come home and take care of myself. The difference between I think maybe some of the households that the kids are living in today is my mother didn't have my house laden with Cheetos and Oreos and all those things. It was you come home and make a peanut butter peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or you come home and eat some raisins and some nuts. But, so I had a very meager pantry to go into, whereas then I think kids these days, they go into a pantry that has Oreos and cookie and, all types of cookies and chips, and they can just sit down and stuff their faces until and the reason why kids generally are eating, it's not so much even necessarily because it at a certain point it tastes good. It's because they're bored or
right.
they're sad or they're scared. Kids will stuff their face because it tastes good, but at the end of the day, they're doing so when a child is obese. It's not just because they like food. There is always another issue underlying.
Absolutely.
And, Peggy Howell is a glaring view of what that's like, I think.
And not just to oversimplify, but yes, like I said earlier, we both said these kids, aren't going to turn down a meal. It's bad parenting. But at the same time, like my guest that I've had a lot of times, Dr. Billy Gordon, who is over 600 pounds, he's in his 50s, his overweight problem was from arming, which is a psychological term, and he was sexually and physically abused as a child by his parents. I mean, it's horrible stories if he ever tells, but his wasn't just bored and overeating or bad parenting. I mean, he was arming because he felt like he could be literally physically invaded and attacked, and that's a common thing. Again, there's many reasons for it. I'm not trying to say it's just these two, but I just want to point out, we're talking about obese people, 75, 100 pounds overweight, or like Peggy Howell. 99% of the time, 100% of the time, this comes from some sort of trauma. And even a simple thing like your parents being lazy and ignoring you and, putting you in front of a video game screen saying, we're going to go and, go on Twitter all day. That's trauma for a kid. A kid needs a lot of quality time with his parents. He needs to be active. He needs to be outside. He needs to be socialized. So I'm not saying you have to be, molested, but anybody that's that kind of weight, it's a glaring, obvious manifestation, and this is not just my opinion. This is a fact. When you're that heavy, that you are dealing with some sort of dysfunction. So, where somebody is, let's say, an alcoholic, or a drug addict, or a gambleaholic or sexaholic, whatever. Everything's a holic nowadays. It's harder to see. These people can get by. They can fake it in society. You don't know until you start dating one, and you're 3 months in, and you realize they're a crazy person. But when you're 600-700 pounds, there's no hiding it. So I find it kind of interesting because it's another thing to think about. Obviously, everybody that's dysfunctional wants to hide the fact that they're dysfunctional. They don't want people to see it. At the same time, they feel abused on some level, and they want the perpetrator, the person that did damage them or traumatize them, they want them to apologize or at least be held accountable. So it's kind of interesting when you think about somebody who's at the 600 or 700 pound marker, like Dr. Gordon, who was talking about his parents, that they are basically screaming out to you, something bad happened to me. Somebody did something bad to me. I can't make it any more obvious. I am 7,000 pounds. Something bad happened to me. And what we do as a society, and where I see Peggy's side, is we look at him and go, quit eating, you fat bastard. And you totally diminish this pain and torture that they've had their whole life. So what drives me most crazy about Peggy is that she's asking for this wound to be treated, this pain to be healed, but she's doing it absolutely the wrong way. What she's asking for us to ignore it is she's basically giving power to all those perpetrators, all those people that abused or traumatized them as children. She's saying, take the pressure off them. Don't look at them. Just accept us for being what we are. Again, coming from somebody who is literally screaming in your face with their body, something bad happened to me. So Peggy is twisted and dysfunctional and delusional, and it comes from a really sad place. And where the empathetic side of us, when we look at fat people, part of us kind of feels sorry, it's quickly brushed over by knowing that they're just eating too much and they're not exercising. And we as people that aren't 600 or 700 pounds don't understand that logic. It's just like an alcoholic when they sit there and go, I'm powerless to the drink. You want to grab them and slap them in the face and say, well, why don't you stop drinking? It's that simple for most of us. For these people out there, the 600 or 700 pounders, the obese people, it's beyond that point. They aren't even aware that they're doing it. There is some terrible, terrible thing that happened. It's very, very sad. So what Peggy should be doing when she goes and puts her organization together is she should be demanding that anybody that comes from a dysfunctional background gets therapy. Maybe it's paid for by tax dollars. Who knows? There's a million things she could do that could help people in her condition. Shutting down the Habit Heroes exhibit, which is teaching kids, like you said, Adriana, a life lesson, is not the way to do it because, again, it ignores the reasons for not the reasons for it, the symptoms. You're treating the symptoms. Obviously, there's many reasons why somebody's that fat.
Why are we, I feel like we're blaming Peggy Howell for this when Disney's the one that pussed out. Disney's the one that should have said, fuck you, we're trying to help people. Shut up.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Disney
I agree 100%.
on all this.
The issue, though, I think that I can't, of course, I can't speak for Disney. I can't speak for Peggy. But, a good portion of the population that goes to Disneyland, has anybody been to Disneyland recently?
They're fat.
Yes, I have two little ones. I haven't.
Oh, my God.
You like beautiful.
You keep on using the word fat, and I think it may be helpful to just constantly say obese, because fat and obese are two totally different things.
Okay.
Obese
is more medical sounding.
It's more medical sounding, but it's the truth, because when you hear fat, when I hear fat, and when I use the word fat is like overweight. Fat is somebody who is 15 pounds overweight, 20 pounds overweight, something that's a manageable weight that you can take off.
I totally disagree, but I hear that. When I hear fat, I think obese, but, that's, again, this is proof that words can be taken different ways. So, yes, you're absolutely right. For the sake of argument, I will say obese because that's something that's not open for interpretation.
It's not. Well, it's just. Well, think about this. It was just what you were arguing about Peggy Howell, being. She's a National Association for the Acceptance of Fat People.
Right.
Like, you're saying, well, are you fat or are you obese because you're 300 pounds?
Well, she's a person of size, so she's neither, according to her.
Jake's fat, and then there's obese.
The word fat. I'm sorry. What's that, Jeffrey?
Nothing.
I think he muted himself.
Jeffrey's he's now shoving food into his face in the kitchen.
I am not.
I'm just saying how bad I want cheese whiz right now.
I touched on it. Well, Jeffrey, let me ask you, Jeff, as the panelist who's the most person of size here, is there a link? Because Peggy never answered this. She went and hung up and did whatever she's going to do. Is there a link, in your opinion, to, again, I'm not going to delve into your life, but do you think there's a link to, basically, is what I'm saying somewhat true, that we're talking about 300-400 pounds, that it does come from some sort of traumatic background?
I think for some people it's very true, but then I just think there's other people that, they're just fucking lazy.
But not, and we're talking obese. You don't think
people...
If
you're heavily obese, I think there's something wrong. Obviously, there's a chemical imbalance going on there somewhere because you see what you're doing to yourself and you're continuing doing it. So obviously, regardless of anything else, something's not right.
Well, yeah, which to me, that's always an obvious indication of trauma. Like, for instance, the flip side of obesity is anorexia. Now, if a woman was walking around, or a boy, because it happens to boys now, was walking around at 60 pounds, completely emaciated, we'd all feel sorry, and we'd say, eat a sandwich or whatever. But you get past that and you want to help them. If some anorexic girl started an organization asking for the acceptance of anorexia and shut down a similar ride, obviously this isn't a bizarre world, we would all jump on her. We would say, you're crazy. Look at you. You're not even healthy. You're wasting away. You're anorexic. You have a problem. It's like it's completely understood that there's a eating disorder based off some sort of dysfunction. It's not something genetic like Peggy tried to say. There's a lot of reasons people are fat. Like they've got the fat gene. Well, you know what? There's no fat people on Survivor. There's no fat people in the Holocaust. Obviously, if you don't eat and you're active, you'll lose weight. So it's not some magical thing that you just catch in the air and all of a sudden you go poof, and you're fat. So why would it be someone who's anorexic that walks around? Why would we understand that and jump on that person for trying to shut down a ride and let something like Peggy and NAFA, why do we give that more credence? It doesn't make sense to me. Or maybe we don't. Maybe I see it in a bubble. I don't know. But it seems like it's understood better.
I think that when we see, I mean, this is just coming from a health professional perspective. When you see a person who is, and maybe even a cultural perspective, when you see a person who is a young woman maybe who is anorexic, she is extremely thin. You're seeing her face pulled and drawn. You're seeing somebody, you said the Holocaust. You're seeing someone who looks like a Holocaust victim.
Right.
When you see someone who is obese to morbidly obese, let's just start with obese. Obese, you actually might be looking at the person's face and thinking cherubic. You're thinking full-featured. You're thinking if they have a smile on their face, they also are, inviting. But then you look at the body type and you say, but extremely large.
Right.
And if morbidly obese, that's a whole different situation. But I think it's because when you initially see that anorexic person, you can see death a little bit closer. You can recognize that death is maybe just 20 pounds away. Whereas a person who is obese or morbidly obese, you recognize that there are health risks that are going to possibly take them away from the world that we're living in today and take them into the land of the death, into the land of the dead. But it may not happen today. It may not happen tomorrow. But eventually it will happen if their behaviors don't change. So one is going to die sooner and the other is going to die later. But they're both going to die.
I'm not even sure, honestly, that that's even true. I mean, that was the point I was trying to make. I got a little confused, but, there are people, that are morbidly obese that literally can't drop any second. I mean, it is, in my opinion, you're the expert, it's my opinion that somebody that's emaciated and anorexic is as much of a health risk for death as someone who's morbidly obese. Like, they're on the same clock. It's just the other side of a coin.
I can't say whether or not they're on the same clock. I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that at all. All I can say is that when the outside world is looking at that picture, they may be seeing death coming sooner for this person who you can see their bone structure. You can see the fact that they're not eating, and you know that they may be soon to be leaving this world. Whereas a person who is obese or morbidly obese, because there's so much, people will say negative things about that. They're like, that person could not eat for 5 days and they'll be fine.
That's true. They can't live off the fat. That is true.
But we would say a person who is anorexic.
No,
we would say a person who's anorexic, if they choose not to eat that piece of lettuce tomorrow, that they might just pass away. So I'm just saying that might be the way that our culture is seeing that. They're not seeing as the person who is obese or morbidly obese, that they are just as close to death's door as the person who is anorexic. But I can't speak to those numbers, though.
Well, I should have asked it this way. I got confused. I mean, would any of us, like with NAFA, for instance, we'll read about it, we'll kind of giggle. But would any of us stand for even a second if there was a National Association for Anorexic Acceptance? I mean, would this world, would America, would there be people on that Facebook page like, no? I mean, that's the thing. It would be like, this is what I'm trying to say. Everyone would look at it and go, this is crazy. This person is dangerously in denial. And it's clear cut because, like, maybe you're making a good point. They're on death's door. Maybe it's more, whatever it is. The point is, that's understood that it's an extreme. It's understood that that person's in danger. And it's understood that they're delusional and calling it a civil rights movement. I mean, they'd get laughed out of the room. Where NAFA, I saw Peggy Howel on C-SPAN. With the bully legislation, I'm not going to get into that because I've done that show a million times, but there was a thing, bias intimidation like we talk about, where they're basing it off race. She was trying to get obese people, put in that list as another, basically saying that they're a race, that they're a gender, and that if you go after a fat person, it's a hate crime. And she was on C-SPAN. So she got to the top, quote unquote. And, obviously there's a lot of people that have a problem with her. But for the most part, it's taken with there's a little bit of shred of respectability she carries, which, again, if it was an anorexic, they would not. And they're the same thing. They really are the same thing. They're an extreme food disorder.
The difference, though, Jake?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the difference is that obese people and fat people, the true definition of overweight fat people, make up 2/3 of our population right now. They make up more than me and maybe Jen. Jen says that she's a healthy weight right now.
She's a crackhead. Yeah. She's like 70.
I'm not a crackhead.
So do you see what I'm saying, though? Like, they're in the majority.
See, that's what
That's what's going on right now.
You're making the
no.
deep point, which I love. Yeah, no, that's a great point. So
I'm not in agreement with Peggy's methods or what she's going on, but when she's quoting out numbers, she's using the same numbers that the CDC is using. She's getting the same information that I'm getting from the same places and using the same numbers to argue her agenda, which is we make up the majority, so therefore we win. Like, we should have bigger seats on airplanes. We should have bigger doors in houses. As a matter of fact,
bigger seats on air. I'm all for that for the bigger people because then I get a bigger seat too, right?
No, they get 2 seats. They get both seats. And they were upset for a long time that they had to pay for 2 tickets. Remember that outrage? They said we should only have to pay 1 ticket, but they were taking up 2 seats, so they had to pay for 2. And that was a huge outrage for a long time, was that, the fat people were like, this is discrimination that you're making me pay for 2 seats. Even though their ass was so huge, it took up both seats.
So did the skinny person get to pay half price?
That's a good question. No, because they still take up the seat.
I get it.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I'm fine with it, but I'm just saying, like, so then an anorexic bitch should only have to pay half.
Right. She should only have to, not even half. She should only have to pay, like, a quarter.
10 cents.
Such a good point. Well, they wouldn't fly anyway. They're too frail. But, when you talk about the numbers, Adrienne, you make such a brilliant point. They are in the majority. Peggy has a movement behind her. There are people that have things to gain, even though, again, it's as delusional as an anorexic. 1/3 of Americans are fat or obese. So she's got a crowd. There are people that want to see her succeed. They want to see this happen. And there's a lot of them. So it's basically crazy to think about. But if 1/3 of America were anorexic, Peggy would be laughed out of the room. And the anorexic one would be a civil rights movement, which only goes to prove that the initial thing is BS, because just the fact that you have more dysfunctional people on your side doesn't make it any less dysfunctional. There's no power in numbers with dysfunction. That just means a lot of people are screwed up.
Yeah, but you're arguing dysfunction, and they would argue back, and that's the issue here, is that there is no dysfunction. She's arguing that she's a healthy individual and that she's just as healthy as everybody else. I was hoping that she would come on the show so I could just ask her some questions, because she says that she's speaking for the majority, but it sounds like she's constantly talking from her perspective. Maybe she does have really good blood pressure. Maybe, for all we know, her knees are fine. Maybe she doesn't suffer from a day of depression that has to do with her weight-based issues. Maybe she, will live till she is in her 100s. We don't know that.
Well, let me ask you this: has anyone here on the panel, anyone listening, has anyone here seen a 75-year-old obese person? Gray-haired and obese. Think about it. I mean, if you have,
I have.
Who?
I have an uncle.
How fat was
he?
Like
some super fat, like the kind that needed a van to drive.
And he was 75 years old?
Well, he was dead soon after that. I don't know.
But he made it to 75. Well, I stand corrected. So there you go.
Yeah, but I mean, he died from diabetes, so I mean, it's still.
There you go.
I'm trying to make the point. You don't see a lot of old fat people. So if it really was healthy, and here's the other thing.
Jake.
It's not a normal body type, what Peggy's trying to work, because society's changed a little bit. Obviously, like we're talking about lazy parenting and high fructose corn syrup. I mean, you could tie it into a million things. So it's really a symptom. Being fat is a symptom. Being obese is a symptom. If this were 3,000 years ago and we were in the cave, if someone got up to 600 or 700 pounds, first of all, that little community or tribe would probably fall apart because the big fatty's eating everybody's food. So everyone else is going to starve. And second of all, if a horde of lions came in and attacked, who do you think is going to be lunched? Who's going to be left behind? It doesn't benefit us as humans to get that big. It's against your evolutionary nature to get up to 600 or 700 pounds. I could argue that it's not normal, because again, through history, if it was normal to be 600 or 700 pounds, we would not have made it this far. There wouldn't even be civilization. We would have been eaten in the wild. So it is unhealthy. Naturally, it's unhealthy. I mean, nowadays, the world's changed to the point where you can get away with it. I mean, you can have a van with a lifting seat. That doesn't mean it's better for you, just because certain people can make adjustments where you can get by. It's not healthy, and it's not a judgment. It's not saying you don't please me aesthetically. It's not a bullying to point it out. What's that, Jen?
You know that part's true for you, too. You wouldn't get in bed with a biggie.
Of course not. But that's because that's an issue. You know, you can't physically penetrate a gigantic person.
You can. You
no,
just find
you can play with the orifices.
What, with a giant shoehorn and a car jack? How do you do that? You can't.
Just stick it anywhere, pretty much.
All right, this is getting off topic. Adrienne is a professional.
You know,
let somebody else talk. I'm falling asleep. I'm talking too much.
You have some callers.
I have callers, really?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to take them. Johnny's on the line.
I don't see Johnny. Can you click him on?
Line?
Is it the one at the bottom?
Second to the bottom, yeah.
That's you.
Okay, you want me to bring him on?
Yeah, because my thing's screwed up, man. This Blog Talk, I'm getting upset.
I think it's your computer, dude. Invest in something
I have a
worthwhile.
Mac. Mine's a Mac, so I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, sorry, Johnny, you're on the air.
Hey, Jake and
Jen
and
it's Johnny
everybody.
Argent. How are you?
I'm good,
Hi,
thanks, guys.
What a
Hey, I'm
pleasant
enjoying
surprise.
the show.
Thank
you know what's occurring to me, Jake? Probably one of the first ways that I kind of met your mom or that she got interested in me was I sent her that little song called Down at the Donut Farm.
Yeah.
And the message was way too much of anything. Just isn't good for you. But you know what I'm reminded of? I don't think we should let people that weigh 700 pounds off the hook either, because you guys are right. I mean, they can argue it, but come on. There's a point beyond which it's just crazy to defend way too much of anything. But you know what? I don't want to let them off the hook, but there is something that your mom and I call the eatertainment industry, or the eatertainment industrial complex. And I notice sometimes when I watch, we're inundated with everything. We're sold everything, let's face it. I see some of these ads, man, for Burger King or McDonald's, and I see these close-ups of some of these gigantic sandwiches, and I've taken a break from meat for a while, but when I look at those things, I could have just finished a big meal. I not only want to eat them, I want to just take my clothes off and roll in that stuff. It looks so good,
Yeah.
We're just constantly tempted. It's like the beer. They make it look like you pop a beer, and all the naked blonde girls run in and start to play volleyball in your living room, and all that great stuff happens, So it's just, I think people are sold this stuff like crazy. It's just pushed on us like crazy.
I mean, you make a good point, and also food is obviously, we all know this, it's very primal. It's not something, obviously, that we just discovered as humans, 100 years ago. It's essential to your survival. It can be linked to a reward system. It can, when you're depressed, you see families that use what they call comfort food, and that's what you gather around your family. Food is so much. It's more than just eating. It's everything, and then it ties into what you're saying, Johnny, with this consumer culture. It's a reward system. People are dysfunctional. I know very few people, myself included, because I'm a fatty, that understand that you eat food for nutrition. That's maybe fifth in the line of my thoughts. When I see food, I'm thinking first, I just want to shove it in my face. And then I'm thinking, satisfy some urge. Then I'm thinking, this is unconditional love. Then I'm thinking I'm bored and depressed. Fifth, I'm like, my body needs these nutrients so that I can survive.
Yeah, that is way down the list. You're right. It's the old saying about we should eat to live, not live to eat. But another thing your mom and I talk about, I like that you said follow the support system behind, the woman upsize and that whole thing. You follow it, and somebody's usually got an axe to grind or a book to sell or some money to make. We describe it as the Jenny Craig Hot Pockets Weight Watchers Dunkin' Donuts Consortium. There's just this big, gigantic, circular, somebody's working both sides of the street and making money off this. I want to say something just before I go, though. This is a really interesting topic today because my sister has worked for a long time for a weight loss doctor. Mm-hmm. And he's got some very controversial ideas. He says that meals are ridiculous, saying it's lunchtime, so I should eat, or it's, hey, what are we doing for dinner tonight, et cetera. He just has two rules. He says, eat whatever you want, but he has two rules. Eat whatever you want and whenever you want, but just don't eat until you're hungry.
Right.
Actually wait until you're physically hungry, which ties in with what you just said. Your body is saying, hey, man, we need some fuel. And two, stop before it hurts. Stop before you feel like you're stuffed. But here's my finishing point here with that. So many of their clients happen to be like domestic workers, poor people. A lot of them happen to be Latino women.
Right.
And they have to take two buses to get to this doctor twice a month, and they pay $25, and they come in, and the whole thing, the eating is the only pleasure in their life because they have miserable jobs. Their brain is, the whole thing is dreadful and horrible. Their lives are wretched from A to Z. But B, they have a chance to come in there and get a little attention. They get their blood pressure checked. They get their, temperature taken, and somebody looks at them and actually looks them in the eye and talks to them for a few minutes. So I just think that, it's another sign of our sick society where we just look for anything, man, whether it's, we just look for something for comfort, as you just said. We're just desperate for it, and we're not getting it in other places.
And I think that's absolutely true. And another thing I want to point out is food for poor people. I can go out and buy, a $7 organic apple infused with, happy juice or whatever they do nowadays. Someone without a lot of money can get a giant cheeseburger, fries, and a vanilla shake for like $3.
Oh, that dollar menu is killing me.
Yeah, so when you don't have a lot of money, you're actually, you would think the opposite. You would think, oh, you're not eating as much, you should be thin if you're poor. But really, when you have to get a lot of food on a little bit of pay, your choices are pretty much things that are high in fat content, high in caloric content. They're cheap fast food, and it's things that the more you eat, the fatter you are. And again, these foods, look at the MSG movement back in the day. There's things they put in food to purposely make you more hungry.
Well,
that's created in a laboratory. So, I'm not trying to blame the evil system or anything, because again, like you said, Johnny, your song, way too much of anything isn't good for you. You have control of what you put into your body, and I always think it's dangerous and a slippery slope to sit there and go, well, there's this consortium of evil corporate, or there's this kind of reward system and all this stuff, because then you're not telling people stop eating so much, and
well,
it gets dangerous.
I like the point that you just made about about poor people and the food being so fattening, and what really, one of the things that's always ticked me off is when comics or commentators, people on TV, and I don't want to stereotype, but they usually seem to be on the right wing kind of side of things, say, hey, I'm sick of all these whining, in a country where even the poor people are fat, and they point to that as if that's a sign of some kind of prosperity, or we're all spoiled brats. They're fat because they're eating unhealthy stuff. They may not be eating 3 times as much as everybody else, but you're right. It's just blown up doughy crap and fat.
Well, that too, and again, if you're a kid and you're growing up on McDonald's cheeseburgers and that's your lunch and dinner, and you're 300 pounds by the time you're 15, you don't know the alternative. Again, I can get upset at somebody like Peggy Howell who knows better. She was raised in a different generation. That woman's, I think, in her 50s.
62.
62, so she doesn't know better, and then you have kids, like I said, that kid that died of a heart attack at 14. I doubt they did their research and understood. They were just eating.
And isn't it crazy? Speaking of kids, I don't think there's ever been a culture or a nation in the history of the world where you had to entertain the kids. You had to make sure that the food had a cute enough name and came in a colorful box and had a prize, or a discount for a movie or something, or a Happy Meal and toys. What is that about? When you have to bribe kids and the food has to be cute and it has to be Count Chocula or whatever the hell it is, that's insane too.
I don't even think that that's bribing children. I think that's specifically marketing to children, knowing that if it's bright and amazing and it has a prize in it, that they will immediately want it. They will want it, and it's always high in sugar and high in fat.
And that's how they make their money.
Hey, you know what?
I grew up with a single mom, though, I have to say, very poor, and I just remember eating all healthy things. Somehow she made it happen. So I still, I still think money's a cop-out, for people, because there are those strawberries from the side of the road. Those aren't that expensive. And I mean, we ate mac and cheese, tuna, and peas. It sounds like hell, but it's delicious. But it costs $2, and it probably still costs about $2, and it's still better than McDonald's. So artichoke, we ate it all when we were kids. She managed to make it happen. Carrots, we just didn't. But you know what? A lot of those poor families do have just to be clear. We live in a school that has, poor families, and they all have that the money is used in ways that it shouldn't be. If they focused it on food, I think it would be different. At least where I live. We're not in a severely poverty-stricken area, but the school I'm at does have the Title I low-income families there, and they all are very well-dressed and I don't think food nutrition is focused on as much.
Well, it's important to say, Johnny's point, everybody's point, there's a lot of contributing factors, but at the end of the day, it's the donut farm. way too much of anything isn't good for you. Even if you only have access to McDonald's, like if you're so poor that you're trapped and you live in a McDonald's dumpster and that's all you're eating, you still don't have to eat 10 cheeseburgers. You can still do 3 square meals. You can still run around the block. I mean, it's a personal choice. The problem I have, and where I kind of understand where Johnny's come from a little bit more, is that if you have bad parenting and there's no education and you're bombarded with shiny objects and, you know, good-looking food, it's hard to sit there and go, well, you know, you should know better and you should go out. Because a lot of these people just don't. A lot of these kids really honestly don't know better.
It's also easy at the end of a long day, which I get too. These are hard-working families, a lot of the low-income ones, blue-collar or what be it. My mom too, but she would come home and cook. So, like I said, I don't have complete sympathy for that. I think people have kind of thrown their arms up and said, we're poor and we're busy. So
yeah, it's tough. It's
hey, guys. Can I leave you with a thought, and then I'm going to listen to your answer? I got a question for you.
Sure.
I'll get off because I know other people want to talk too. But at the other end of the spectrum, there's also a phenomenon that drives me crazy, whereby I think it's women particularly. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'll wait for your answers and your thoughts. But there's this phenomenon where people also make this huge deal out of not eating, losing weight, going to the gym, dieting. I've noticed so many otherwise super intelligent women. They can be super educated, informed, and all the rest of it, but you get a couple few women together, and it seems like in a matter of minutes, more than a couple few minutes that don't pass, and it's kind of about weight loss and calories and fat, and like this obsession. You know, the fat thing is almost, there's this other thing, just this obsession with not being fat and how hard and how much you work at it and talk about it, and it just, you know, as your mom said in her act, half the world's starving, the other half is trying to lose weight.
Right.
You know what I mean about just this obsession where all the women are suddenly like, they're not really jocks, but they kind of half-ass pretend they are, and everything's about inches and calories, and it's
$300 Lululemon pants. Pants $300.
Love Lululemons.
All right, I'm gonna take another.
What do you guys think? Yeah, let me go. But if somebody would touch on that a little bit, just this obsession with not being fat is kind of lame too. So
yeah, I agree.
I'll listen offline. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I got a guy that's been on.
And a good show. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny.
I've got a guy that's been on hold for 30 minutes, Chris, talking about Disney ride. I want to go to him because I got yelled at last week. So I'm going to answer this, Chris, if you're listening. We're going to get you in a second, but just to answer Johnny's question is, you know, I have this problem a lot being such a sophisticated, warm-hearted human being that I am, full of so much empathy. But it's so hard sometimes to find that balance. I struggle with it every day where you can sit there and go, again, to use the fat thing as an analogy, stop eating, fatty. I mean, you just want to scream that in their face. But like I said just 20 minutes ago, I went and delved into this whole psychological aspect where you can tell that I do feel sorry for them. So it's always this weird thing where it's really, we're all kind of looking for questions and we're all looking for answers, and who are we going to blame? Sometimes you blame the victim, sometimes you blame the perpetrator, sometimes you make somebody a perpetrator who's completely innocent. Like, I don't know that I would necessarily blame the food companies for making a product shiny. I mean, they want to sell product. But again, it's like this weird thing. It is kind of everybody. Everybody's involved. Everybody's a part of it. It really is. I mean, I'll
100%.
let you. So I'm going to take this call.
100%.
What's that, Adrienne?
I was just going to say it's 100%. I think we've discussed this before, that you know, the food companies have always been making bad food, and when I say bad, they've been making food that's delicious that people have the opportunity to overeat.
Right.
Food wasn't just created yesterday, so people didn't just become fat yesterday. This has been a long-standing thing where there was at one point where food was, you know, just as delicious. They were making Ho-Hos and Twinkies, and hamburgers were made a long time ago. But the obesity epidemic was at the time not like it is now.
You make such a great point. I didn't even think about it. I mean, look at a commercial for like 1950s housewife, and it's like, what is that? Ovaltine, drink your Ovaltine for breakfast, which is like basically a chocolate malt shake. And, you know, everything's like lard. Instead of, now we use like Pam and olive oil to cook. They used to take a big spoonful of lard and smear the bottom of a pan and cook, you know, hash browns in it. I mean, if anything, food's getting healthier, you could argue.
Anyway. It is, actually.
So, again, let's blame the fat people, right? We're all in agreement? Yes? Okay. I'm just kidding. All right. Chris, Chris, are you there?
Hello.
Hey, sorry I had you on hold for so long. I know we were talking about Disney. We're going long today. Is that okay, Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens? Does it get edited off?
No. I extended the show so everybody can still hear.
Thank you. Okay. So let's try and stay on topic. That's my fault. Back to the habit heroes. So, Chris, you're calling about the Disney ride, according to the notes, yes?
Well, I was calling. I was talking about the Disney ride, and I was just saying, there's in some instance, people are born, it's part of genetic to be overweight, to be fat. So I don't think that they should be. I don't think they should ban people. But I see your point about being too heavy. That I see your point about that. But I think that they should just make all size fits all. They should make it accessible for everybody.
Well, I'm glad you called. Stay on the line. There's an old saying on the internet: "Prepare your anus," which is when somebody walks into a room and says something and they know they're going to get attacked. You respond, "Prepare your anus." So Chris, prepare your anus. I got to say, this genetic thing. I'm sorry. I'm not a doctor. I know that people are going to question it. I know what I'm talking about. It is a myth. It is not true. There are certain genetic things. Adrienne is going to talk about this. She knows her stuff. There are certain precursors, maybe. But, again, it's all theory. Just like depression is a brain imbalance in your brain, none of that is proven. We simply do not know enough about genetics or neuroscience to make these this what do we call fact. It is theory. There is nothing proving that fat people have a genetic link. Am I correct, Adrienne?
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. It is
just do the
theory,
yes part.
And no. Yeah, I'm going to have to do the no part too. Thanks for calling in, Chris. I appreciate it. This is something that we definitely need to talk about as well. Genetics play a part, yes, in some people's they play a part in everybody's physical makeup, right? I don't know what color you are. I happen to be an African-American woman. This is why I find Peggy Howel to be aberrative, because she's talking about discrimination, and I'm like, honey, you don't even know discrimination. Anyway,
right?
So, and actually she does. She knows what it's like when a huge fraction of people are against one thing. So anyway.
Yeah, but you don't choose to be African-American when you're born.
No, I don't.
Right.
And she definitely, and at this point, actually, let's just switch real quick. She, at this point, maybe isn't even choosing to be obese anymore. She just is.
Right.
She just is obese. That it's her lifestyle. She has made it. She has, at some point, made a choice, and that choice is since gone, and now she's just living in the shoes that she's in, and she refuses to change. So.
But again, Adrienne, there's no fat gene.
No, there isn't a fat.
Right.
There are several. There are, as you said, there are precursors that can lead. There are genes that they've been able to extrapolate and look at and say, yes, this has the possibility of creating a person who would have.
But here's a
obese.
question I have for this, because I've done this depression show. I know I keep jumping back and forth, but they are related. When people say that there's a certain brain chemistry a depressed person has, and then scientists look at it, they study the brain of the depressed person, they go, oh, he's got this chemical here, there must be a link. But they never studied that person's brain before they became depressed.
Right.
And just the same, there's
True.
I just want to be really clear, there's no genetic samples they take of a normal kid, follow them through life, they get gigantic and obese, and then they take a second sample and compare them. What they're doing is they're studying already obese people, and they're finding a link. So what we don't know, I just want to be really clear, is that whatever this precursor gene is, it could be a chemical that changes dependent upon the fact that you're eating 1,000 cheeseburgers a day. Just like depression, when there is this link they were trying to make in the brain that your serotonin levels are low, or whatever that horse shit was years ago. The truth was, it's very simple that if your house is foreclosed on and your wife leaves you and you get depressed, that constant depression, that constant state, that your brain will produce lower levels of serotonin. But it's because you lost your house and your wife. But scientists will look at that and go, well, there's this chemical here, it must be linked. And everyone goes, oh, okay, well, there's a link, great. But we have no idea. Again, there's not samples taken pre-obesity. So I know I don't mean to sound cruel, because I know they found precursors and everybody's excited in the medical community. But until they take a sample of a pre-obese person, it doesn't mean much to me. That's all I want to say.
Well, what I feel like what they need another way of them doing this is that if you have a family and there is that one person who isn't obese,
right,
they still share a genetic pool, and generally you could use that a child as an example or a young person as an example, right, and see if that person. I mean, I'm sure at this point somebody might be on the path to making this happen, and if not, maybe by listening to us they'll do it.
Yeah, someone
but
get out there and fix it.
Yeah,
well,
but
either way, was
Chris,
there? If there was, I mean, if you say, I mean, this genetic precursor you're talking about, what is it? In 1 in 10 people, 1 in 5?
No. It's 1 in like 5.
Okay, so
1 in 5, and what I'm
out.
saying, it's not what they've said, and this is if we're all following that there are also other things that attribute to obesity, and it's not just one thing.
Right.
They said, the person would have the propensity to be obese, but that's along with and
eating
immediately
1,000 cheeseburgers.
Eating, exactly,
right.
and also maybe living in a socioeconomic environment that has fast food chains on every corner, and also maybe living in a household where you don't have a lot of money and you are depressed, thereby eating even more, and maybe also living in a place where you don't get a lot of activity. So I've already named like 5 things. So
of course, but again,
if
1 in 5 people had this gene precursor and it was linked, then 1 in 5 Holocaust victims would be fat.
Okay, can I say something?
They didn't have.
Well, then 1 in 5 people that live,
I'm just kidding.
on an island would be fat. Yes.
And that's only 3% of obese people, by the way. 1 to 3% of obese people. So let's just keep it very small.
And also, if somebody had a precursor gene, we'll call this gene X for the sake of argument, and somebody didn't, if you put them both in a room, fed them 100,000 calories a week, and didn't exercise, they would both get obese. Yes?
Right, but then if you also put them on the survivor island that you were talking about,
they would both lose weight.
Also lose weight.
Right.
Exactly.
So then,
I couldn't get obese. I'm telling you, there's no way.
Yeah,
that's because you're on meth. I'm telling you, meth speeds up your metabolism, Jen.
No matter what I eat, it just isn't going to happen. I have anxiety. I think that's what it is. High metabolism, all that. So.
That's environmental.
Yeah.
Jen just went to the bathroom. I'm so excited.
Shut up.
Jen pees a lot during the show. But anyway, okay, so Chris.
Only one time today. I didn't have anxiety today. 1 pee. That was it.
I don't know if I don't want to creep anyone out, but Jen has trouble and uses this radio show to use the restroom. She tries to hide it. I'm going to try and catch her one of these shows. I don't want to gross people out.
I had it. I put it on the chat room.
No, you're flushing now. So
I don't flush.
Chris, the original caller, when you say they should make one size fit all, you're basically saying that we should accept, obese people.
I'm saying
what are
we
you
should
saying,
accept. Okay, here's something. I'm going to try to say this as calmly as I can. Okay. What I'm trying to say is they should accept people for what they are, and we should not be criticizing for people's weight, because I'm skinny, but I was a chubby kid, and then I went through depression and got skinny. So I'm skinny, and I'm not trying to speak as a fat person because I'm skinny, but I'm trying to say that we should not be discriminating against fat people or skinny people because as long as they're happy. As long as they're happy being who they are,
but clarify
being what they are.
Discriminating. You mean we shouldn't laugh at them behind their back?
Yeah, we should. We shouldn't make fun of them. I mean, if we want to help them, if we want to help them, then we should be saying things in a nice way. But with society the way it is, and with things the way they are, we want to just criticize overweight people and just let thin people do whatever they want, and that's not good. I think that we should, I'm trying to speak fairly here, but I think that we should just accept people, and we can give advice, and we can give our opinion if they ask us for it, but I think we should accept people for what they are. Because
I think that's a beautiful message, Chris. I mean, I think we should all hold hands and sing Kumbaya every single day. I would love that. But you've got to understand there is a reality. Somebody who's obese.
You're missing my point again.
Okay.
You're missing my point. My point is, I'm not saying we should sing Kumbaya. You're missing my point. I don't know if you're just going to be funny or not, but you're missing my point. What I'm trying to say is, we need to get along. We need to stop criticizing people for their weight, and just criticize people for what their actions. That's what I'm trying to say.
But
I think that's a great point.
Disney was trying to do that. Disney made it a positive thing, and then Peggy Howel is the one that turned it into a big bully movement against fat people. But they were trying to make it a positive. They weren't saying mean things. They were saying this is how you should eat. So
bravo, Eli. Can you hit the applause for Jen? That was brilliant. Too late. All right, you blew it, Eli. But that's the point, Chris. I was going to lead, and Jen said it so beautifully. What do you think? There they are. Thank you, Eli. What do you think with Disney, the Habit Hero ride? Do you think there was discrimination against? Do you think there was an insult to fat people in that? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Disney, Disney wanted to just. I think it. I don't know, and I'm just giving my opinion. I'll say that. I'm just giving my opinion. I'm not trying to speak fact or trying to prove I'm right or anything, because I don't really know. I only know what I've looked up and what I know. But I think it sounds to me about this ride thing. I think they were just trying to discriminate against fat people, and I'm trying to put that slightly.
Let me ask you this, Chris. Here's one of the Habit Heroes characters is named Drama Queen, who's an average-shaped girl, not a heavy girl, and she's a gossiper, and her bad habit was that she gossiped. Is that insult to 13-year-old girls? Is that discrimination? Or is that just pointing out that some people have bad habits and that it's okay to point out a bad habit without discriminating against an entire people? Do you understand the difference?
Well, I think I think a lot of teenagers probably gossip, but they're probably speaking from teenagers that gossip. But right. I'm not going to say every teenager gossips. I'm not going to say that not. Every.
Here's another character, Chris, Insecura, who's an average weight girl. There's another Habit Hero exhibit, not heavy. Her bad habit is that she lacks self-esteem. So the interactive game was to help her gain self-esteem. Is that against depressed people? Is that discrimination against depressed people? Another one is Iced Cappuccino, who is an average-shaped person who drinks too much coffee. Is that against coffee drinkers? Do you understand what I'm saying?
And a young person who's a coffee drinker. Like it's because young people are going to Starbucks and having 450-calorie drinks and drinking caffeine at the age of 13, which they should not be doing.
Right. And it's a bad habit. And again, Chris, just to reiterate, the Disney ride was not called Kill the Fat Person. It was called Habit Heroes. It was about teaching good habits.
But the point was they didn't make a size that fits all, and then.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, they actually.
I don't know.
Well, you mean like the ride wasn't big enough for an obese person to get in? Is that what you're saying?
It's
I'm just confused.
I'm saying we should not be blaming the person for being fat and just saying that they broke the ride. I think that we should give Disney some responsibility.
That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, Chris.
It's not even discriminatory. Like, if you want to be anything, like, let's say what it is, people are fucking whining because they think people are being mean to them. It's not discrimination. Because somebody has a fucking couch potato in a ride, it's not discrimination. You just call it mean.
Yeah, Chris, I don't know if you know, but what happened was one of the characters is Lead Bottom, and it's a pear-shaped tick. It's not even a person. It's a cartoon character who had a big belly. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the what is that, the Tick or whatever, the Disney show. It's a character. It's not a person. I want to be very clear. It was not a drawing of a fat person. It was a character, like a cartoon character. It had little feet, too. Anyone's ever watched a cartoon? Like SpongeBob, should people with square heads get upset at SpongeBob? It's a cartoon. So one of them was Lead Bottom, who sat on the couch and didn't get enough exercise, so you were to work this character out.
Maybe instead of them getting thinner as you shoot the unhealthy things away, they should show their hearts stopping to explode.
Wow.
Do you see why I got Jen? Do you guys see why I picked Jen? I should be a talent.
Clear, what happens at the very end, and I think what has been a challenging thing for everybody who's been online reading about this ride and not doing a lot or enough research to actually figure out what it was all about, is that a lot of people have been talking about these characters like they're villains. You're not a villain. They're not villains. We're not trying to destroy them. Nobody's trying to destroy them. The kids weren't trying to destroy them. At the very end, the kids are standing around with their parents, and Lead Bottom is there, and Calisthenics is there, and Will Power's on the other side, and they're trying to dance him into good shape. They're trying to show him a good habit, to get off his couch and dance him into good shape. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that I hear where Chris is trying to go with this, and while it makes sense from his perspective, we cannot handhold the world into killing themselves. I refuse as a fitness professional to handhold the world into their death into their death coffin, into the world. I refuse to hear about another child dying from a heart attack at the age of 14 for complications due to obesity. I will not accept everybody for who they are. I refuse to do that. That is fine for you. You can be at home and sit in the world that you live in and feel like that's okay. But I am surrounded by people with health issues. I work at a hospital, and I teach fitness classes, and I see people with obesity walking by me on a daily basis, barely shuffling forward. So I will not sit back and say that it is okay, because we're not just talking about people who want to be accepted. We're talking about people with extreme health issues. If they didn't have health issues, I would just be sitting back and being like, fine, it's okay, fine.
Yeah, person of size. I would take that.
I think Adrienne needs a show, and it needs to be called Fattervention. I think
Adrienne needs to be my personal trainer.
It's Adrienne Jeffrey, and she's not a miracle worker, for Christ's sakes.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
I
Chris.
lost 6 pounds, thank you.
Chris, are you still there?
Yeah, here's where I think I got confused, and as Jake knows, I've done this a lot on Twitter. But I thought this was a news story. I had no idea it was a video game.
Well, it's a ride at Disney, but it's an interactive video game, basically. It's not a roller coaster. You go in and you interact with the screen, kind of like Star Tours. It's a screen and your chair shakes. Actually, the chair doesn't even shake. You just walk in a room and you can play a giant video game on a giant screen, but there's no roller coaster. No fat person broke it or anything.
Okay, well, that's where I got confused. It's a video game, and I see how it's a health issue. I do agree that if it's a health issue, we should get involved. I do agree with that, but I was just speaking from a discriminating point of view. That I think there's a nice way to help people, and then but we shouldn't insult somebody and say we're trying to help them, because insulting people is not helpful.
I mean, that's a good point, but Chris, again, like Jen pointed out, had Disney put a ride that said, punch your local fatty, I would back you up, but it was called Habit Heroes. It was not mean-spirited. It was not bullying in any way. It was the nice thing you're asking about. The way you're asking that you want people to treat fat people. That's exactly what Disney did. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I love Disney. I love Disney movies. I love Disney rides. In fact, if I really think about it, and probably the rest of you, a lot of our moral understanding, a lot of it's based off Disney movies. Growing up, that was a good model for us. Well, for me, screw you, Eli. You're watching your own caviar party. But, Disney's, let me just put it this way. Disney does not make Nazi propaganda. I mean, if you look at their movie, it's always a positive message. They're not mean-spirited in any way. So for anybody to do a ride and get shut down, if you asked me to guess which company was behind it, Disney would have been the last. They're not mean-spirited. They don't. Go ahead. Someone's yelling.
Small world. It's a small world.
Was that mean to fat
It's
midgets?
a small world. The ride at Disneyland. It's a small world after all.
Yeah.
Like, it's everybody's favorite ride. So
well,
they shut that down to make it fit big people too.
I know.
Is that true?
Yeah. So it's a big world now.
But that's not. The Small World's not a mean ride, Adrienne. You're not saying that, are you?
No, I said no. I'm saying like it's a small world. Like that is the quintessential feel-good ride that Disney has. That is all about people connecting and absolutely not saying anything bad about anybody. And the actual Habit Heroes, I mean, just from the name alone, Habit Heroes, it is so quite obviously not something negative. There is a woman who is a MD pediatrician. She took her kids. She has made it very, very clear. I was hoping that she would call in today because she had some really great things to say just about the ride being the most, these are my words, but the most benign and less and non-offensive fair at Disney Epcot. This was not something that was, and I think Jake, you've probably talked on this before, but bullying is like a tag word right now that people use to cause an uproar. And she used the bullying, she used the bullying word to get people on her side very, very quickly because she knows that that's a hot topic right now. The ride wasn't bullying anybody. She said it was bullying kids on their children on their vacation. And when she says kids, she's talking about obese children. But realistically, this pediatrician that I was telling you about, she said she was in there, and people at the end of it all, where they're dancing lead bottom down to so that he understands that exercise is good, the kids are jumping up and down and screaming.
Right.
And having a great time. They're not screaming with, oh, my God, somebody's been bullying me, which we all know the definition of bullying, right?
I have it, if you want me to read it.
I have it, too.
Oh, well, you go ahead and read it. Because
Why don't you go ahead and read it, Jake?
You've probably never heard this show before, but I pretty much talk about bullying every single week. I did a whole show last week on Ravi and Clementi. I don't know if you know that case, but I've gone so far to say that it's a witch hunt. It's modern-day McCarthyism to use the term bully to it's basically another, mixing up my stories, but scarlet letter. It's basically tagging somebody to say they're bullying you. People are so frightened of that word. The definition has changed a million times. The definition is to treat abusively or to affect by means of force or coercion. Nowadays, if you tell a fat person, and yes, I'm saying fat, not obese, because I'm mad now. If you tell a fat person that you should, if you eat vegetables and don't exercise, and if you eat vegetables and exercise, sorry, I'm getting so mad, that's considered bullying now. You can't even tweet anything anymore. It's cyberbullying. You should be. I had a caller last week, Adrienne. Her son was in a PE class with another kid. The other kid was kind of chunky, and he said, and the fat kid couldn't run fast and was upset. And he went up to him and said, you know, if you lost a little bit of weight, you'd run faster. Well, he got sent to the principal. He's been labeled a bully, and the mom had to go meet with the school last week. She called in, Bella Blue Eyes. It's insane. It really is modern-day McCarthyism. She's being forced to put her son through. She DM'd me later, but she's being forced to put her son through sensitivity training instead of putting those parents through some nutrition and parenting training. So this is a problem. It's not, and even Chris calling in, with not knowing all the facts. I mean, he's better now, but there's a lot of people that react and think, well, it's bullying. You hear the word bullying, you don't even read the story. You go, well, obviously NAFA was right, because if you talk to anybody about this case that doesn't read it, they'll say this. They'll disagree with all of us. They'll say, well, obviously Disney was out to punish fat kids because they were bullying and it was mean stereotype. Dr. Yoni Freedhoff, the doctor I was trying to get on my show, he's a doctor, and he agreed with Peggy. He's a doctor.
But Jake,
is he an MD?
I don't know. Probably not.
Oh.
This is nuts. This is nuts. As a fat person, it is not offensive. It is not discriminatory. And if we're going to talk about stuff, why is Peggy not going after what we teach preschoolers? Because when you teach health in preschool and to little children, you're giving them pictures of vegetables. So how is that not the same thing as what Disney did? Or what about the VeggieTale series? Maybe that's discriminatory. I guess they're bullying because they're all vegetables. Why aren't they French fries and ice cream cones?
It's such a good point. Look at Patrick on SpongeBob. How come no one's pissed off at him? He's fat.
I'm saying it's
and he's
ridiculous.
stupid. Is Nickelodeon saying all fat people are stupid with Patrick? Am I the only one that watches SpongeBob?
Disney, I watch it. Disney better take away their fruit stands they've been adding in too, because cotton candy's getting pissed.
Right.
Well, not only is Patrick fat, he's obviously mentally challenged.
Right.
So why aren't they going after both of them? Like, let's do it. Like, if we're going to get into shit, if we're going to really throw down over a Disney ride, I mean, let's go after everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't give kids vegetables. You can't let them color pictures of vegetables because the fat kid's going to be offended that there wasn't an ice cream cone.
Right.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, you can't say, I don't want my roommate to be gay and not go to prison for 10 years nowadays. It's just a crazy
that's absolute bullshit.
You know what?
Crazy
time.
Jake, you were saying something about when you were talking about the bullying definition. I'm sorry to interrupt everybody, but you were talking about the bullying definition and something came to mind. Peggy Howel, and maybe let's just say all organizations that resemble that, they're trying to redefine for the entire world, for the world at this point, because this is probably news that's crossed all over. Everybody knows about this, but they're trying to redefine what our normal is.
Right.
And, our normal currently is an average-sized person. Let's just go. It's our normal. Let's just pretend like we're in the 1950s. Our normal is a 1950s body type, which is a healthy body type, which is an active person. Unfortunately, as times have changed, with progress, we've gotten lazy, we've gotten ambivalent, we're now all complicit in some way in regards to bad behavior when it comes to eating and activity. So they're trying to redefine our normal, and I have an issue with that, because if we redefine normal, that just means that we're going to go to hell in a handbasket real quick.
No, it's absolutely true. I mean,
we all have issues.
How come they weren't mad at Pixar for the end of WALL-E? If anyone's seen WALL-E, one of my favorite movies, the end of WALL-E is. It was not a joke. You know, I don't know if anyone knows, but in the future, everyone's like 600 pounds and they're going around on these floating scooters. Check WALL-E out. But basically, let's call it out like it is. Peggy and all these other organizations, that's what they want. That last 5 minutes of WALL-E, where the fat people in chairs and they got iPads or whatever hooked up, they're not even talking to each other on Facebook. It wasn't a frightening view into the future. That was Peggy's utopia.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not being crazy. If you ask Peggy, if you looked in her mind, if you could get her under a machine and look at her dreams, it's everybody 700 pounds and in a floating scooter.
Well,
that's
Jake,
her normal. And, you know, any time anybody wants to redefine normal around the basis of their own dysfunction, read a history book. Look what happens when people try and do that. We all know what healthy is. We don't need unhealthy people telling us.
Are you going to say the Holocaust?
I was going to say Nazis. I'm not a one-trick pony. You know what? There's a thing called Godwin's Law I spoke to my mom about. It is true. Every argument within 3 turns, it's Godwin's Law, it's called. You can look it up online. It does go to analogy of the Nazis. And I'll tell you why. It works. My mom did it to me last week before she interrupted me and wouldn't let me answer, and then Jen backed her up.
All you did was interrupt her.
I didn't. I'll play you the friggin' tape when we get off the show. I'll play it for you. Besides the point. Anyway, we're running out of time, so I'm gonna wrap up.
I extended it again. No?
I'm hungry. All this food talk, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, baseball. I gotta go watch my kid be active.
Yeah. Jen, so anyway, I want to say thank you to Chris, our callers, for Johnny, Adrienne, of course, our main guest. I want to say thank you so much. This was actually an informative hour, and I'm so excited there's actually smart people listening to my show. This is a big deal for me. You are one of the many.
Thank you all for having me.
What's that, Adrienne?
Thanks, Eli. I said thanks Eli for that.
Yeah,
and
he's getting better.
Thank you all for having me. This was
awesome. Thank you. Call in anytime.
I want her to come on our show during the week.
Quit trying to steal all my guests, Jeffrey.
No way. She's awesome.
Well, ask Adrienne. You can ask her. You can go to her blog if you really want to know how to get in touch with her. It's adriennepelt.wordpress.com.
Baby, just email me unscripted@AOL.com, baby. I got to talk to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Get out.
All right. Check her out. Thank you, Adrienne. That was a good show. 30 seconds left, right? I just want to say we have a special announcement to make. One of us is pregnant.
Jake!
Jake, you weren't supposed to tell anybody.
You tweeted it.
I'm trying to get on Oprah first.
Oh. Wait, you tweeted it, Jen.
I know.
Oh, my God. Am I not supposed to say?
No, you
good
say.
For you.
My dad doesn't know. Nobody knows, but no one knows I'm on Jake Pentland's show, so it's
I'm
perfect.
sorry. Okay, we gotta work out. I've been really good at everything you asked me to keep secret. Yes.
Yes.
Like that you're a meth head and a lesbian. So I just assumed if it goes on Twitter, I can talk about it.
If it's on Twitter, it's up for grabs. I'm fucking with you, retard.
Oh, okay.
Wait, I can't say that on there.
She was just talking about it in the chat room.
Jen's evil. It's the meth messing with her. But anyway, Jen is pregnant. For all 13 listeners, it is not mine. I just want to be clear, it's not mine. Me and Jen have never met.
My gay husband got it in.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
He had her put on Glee, and then he did her doggy style. All right, this is juvenile. Anyway, I want to say thank you to everybody. Eli, very good job today. Very, very good.
Thanks, Coach.
Did everyone like Eli's sound effects?
Love Eli and his sound effects.
Thank you. He's very.
I appreciate it.
All right, I'm going to play the outro, and hopefully it doesn't play 3,000 times like the intro did with the Netflix. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Excellent show. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Peace out.
Peace out.